Full story. The Luna overheard his plan to replace her. She vanished before dawn and returned untouchable debt. The Luna overheard his plan to replace her. She vanished before dawn and returned untouchable debt. True real-life story. Approx 2,100 words. She was not the kind of woman who asked for applause. She never stood at the front of the room waiting to be thanked. She worked in the background, fixed things quietly, smoothed over problems before anyone even knew those problems existed. That was just who she was. Her name was Saren. And for 3 years, she had given everything she had to the people around her, to her partner, to their shared home, to the community they led together. From the outside, their life looked solid. They had built something real. Saren was known as a woman who kept her word. If she said she would handle something, it was handled. If there was tension between two people in their circle, she was the one who sat with both sides, listened carefully, and helped them find a way forward. People trusted her, not because she demanded it, but because she had earned it. Slowly, over years, through small acts that nobody ever really keeps count of until they are gone. Her partner, Calum, was a different kind of person. He was confident, loud in the right moments, good at making entrances. He carried the title and the public face of their partnership, while Saren carried most of the actual weight. She did not resent this. She understood that people play different roles. She believed in what they were building together. She believed in him. That belief, as it turned out, was the most expensive thing she ever owned. It was a Tuesday evening, completely ordinary, the kind of night where nothing is supposed to happen. Saren was walking through the house on her way to the kitchen when she passed the room where Calum was talking with two people she recognized, men he had known for years, men she had always been polite to at dinners and gatherings. The door was not fully shut. She was not trying to listen. But she heard her own name, and something in her body stopped moving before her brain caught up. She stood completely still in the hallway. Calum's voice was calm, not angry, not emotional, just calm, the way a man talks when he has already made up his mind and is now only explaining the logistics. He was talking about replacing her, not in an argument, not as a threat, but as a plan. A real plan, with a timeline. He had someone else in mind, a woman from a different circle, someone whose family connections would be more useful to him going forward. He talked about the switch, the way someone talks about upgrading a phone, not cruelly, just practically. As if Saren were a role that needed to be filled by someone better suited, not a person who had spent 3 years loving him and building something alongside him. She did not hear everything. She did not need to. The part she heard was enough. She walked to the kitchen. She filled a glass of water. She stood at the counter and drank it slowly. Her hands were steady, which surprised her. She had expected to shake. Instead, she felt something settle in her chest. Not peace exactly, but a kind of terrible clarity. The kind that only comes when something you suspected but refused to believe finally shows itself in plain language. She went to bed that night beside him, as if nothing had changed. She lay in the dark and stared at the ceiling, and thought very clearly about what her life actually was, and what she was going to do about it. She did not cry. She did not plan what she would say to him. What she planned instead was how to leave. Cleanly, quietly, on her own terms, before he could control the story. By 3 in the morning she was awake, and moving through the house room by room. She packed only what was hers, clothes she had bought herself, documents with her name on them, the savings from an account she had kept separate since before they were together. She did not take anything that could be argued over later. She did not want anything that would give him a reason to follow up. She left the jewelry he had given her on the dresser. She left her keys on the hook by the door. She wrote one short letter, not to him, but to the one elder woman in their circle she genuinely trusted, and placed it on the kitchen table. Then she walked out through the side gate at 4 in the morning, while it was still dark and the street was quiet, and she did not look back. Nobody saw her go. When morning came, Calum woke up and his house was in order, the bed was made, and his partner of 3 years was simply not there. Saren moved to a city far enough away that she would not run into anyone she knew at the supermarket. She rented a small apartment and paid her first month's rent in cash. She changed nothing about herself except the name she went by. She dropped his family name and went back to the one she was born with, Aldrich, the name she had quietly set aside when she joined her life to his. It felt strange at first, like a coat she had not worn in years. Then it started to feel like the only name that had ever really fit. She found work almost immediately. The skills she had spent 3 years building, managing people, resolving conflict, organizing systems, keeping complicated situations from falling apart, turned out to be exactly what the working world paid good money for. She was hired within 2 weeks. Her employer, within a month, was asking her to take on more responsibility. The things Calum had never credited her for, the things she had done so smoothly that nobody had noticed the effort, were now visible in a context where people actually paid attention. It was quietly satisfying in a way she had not expected. She did not contact anyone from her old life. She needed the silence. Not the silence of hiding, she was not hiding, but the silence of a person who has been surrounded by noise for so long that they have forgotten what their own thoughts sound like. She spent evenings reading. She cooked meals she actually wanted to eat. She went for long walks in the early morning, which reminded her of those pre-dawn hours when she had left. Except now the quiet felt like freedom instead of fear. She cried eventually. Not about him exactly. More about the version of herself she had given away piece by piece over 3 years. So gradually she had not noticed until she was standing in a strange city, realizing she had almost lost herself entirely. She gave that grief its proper time. She did not rush past it or pretend it was not real. She let it move through her, and when it was done, she felt lighter than she had in years. Around 6 weeks after she left, the elder woman, the one she had written the letter to, reached out. Not to pressure her, not to drag her back, just to let her know what was happening. Calum had moved forward with his plan. The new woman had arrived. But things were not going smoothly. The circle around him was unsettled. The alliances Saren had spent years carefully building were quietly breaking down. People were asking questions he did not have good answers to. Several of the people who had always backed him were now stepping back and waiting to see how things played out. The community, it turned out, had been more dependent on Saren's invisible work than anyone had realized, including Saren herself. She listened to all of this without satisfaction and without bitterness. She simply took note of it. What she decided next surprised even her. She decided to go back, not to stay, not to forgive, not to fight, but to close things properly, on her own terms. She had never formally stepped away from the role she held. She still carried the title and the responsibilities that came with it, which meant the situation was legally and socially unresolved. She was not going to let him resolve it for her in her absence, in whatever way suited him best. She was going to walk back in and resolve it herself. She arrived on a Thursday morning without any warning. She did not go to his door. She went directly to the community gathering space and formally requested what their rules allowed: an open meeting with all the key people present. That request could not be refused. Within a few hours, people were assembled. Calum was there, and she could see from his face that he had expected someone broken, someone who would cry in front of everyone, or make a scene, or beg. He had prepared himself for that version of her. He was completely unprepared for the version that walked in. She stood in front of the room and spoke without raising her voice once. She laid out, clearly and simply, everything she had contributed over 3 years. Not to show off, but because the record needed to exist. She named the alliances she had built, the conflicts she had resolved, the systems she had put in place that everyone now took for granted. She had kept notes. She had records. She presented them calmly. Then she stated what she wanted: a formal, properly documented dissolution of her role, one that recognized her contributions, protected her standing, and could never be reframed later as something shameful or small. Calum tried to take control of the room twice. Both times, she simply waited until he was finished and then continued. She was not cold exactly, but she was completely steady, and that steadiness was more powerful than anything loud could have been. The people in that room watched a woman who had clearly already done her grieving, who was not there because she needed something from him, who was there only to close a door that she, and only she, would decide when to shut. Several of the elders, without saying anything dramatic, shifted slightly in their seats to face her more directly. Small things. But she noticed. And so did everyone else. The formal meeting to close her role was held 3 days later. It went exactly as she had asked. Her name was recorded with full acknowledgement of her years of service. Her title was released cleanly, with no shadow over it. When it was over, One of the elders approached her privately and offered her something unexpected: an independent advisory position within the community, a newly created role that had never existed before her situation made the gap visible. She thanked them and said she would think about it. She drove back to her apartment the same afternoon. She made tea. She sat by the window and watched the street for a while. She thought about the woman who had packed a bag at 3 in the morning, 80-something days ago, hands steady, walking out into the dark, because she trusted herself more than she trusted a man who had been planning her replacement while she slept beside him. She had not won by fighting. She had not won by getting revenge, or making him look bad in front of people, or trying to take anything from him. She had won the only way that actually lasts, by knowing her own worth clearly enough that nobody else's opinion of it could shake her, by leaving before they could push her out, by coming back only when she was ready, and only on her own terms. People who heard about what happened afterward would sometimes say she had been brave. She did not think of it as bravery. She thought of it as simple self-respect, the kind that does not announce itself, that does not need an audience, that just quietly holds a line and refuses to move. The kind of respect for yourself that, once you find it, nobody can ever really take from you again. She accepted the advisory role a week later, not because she needed it, but because she had built something real over 3 years, and the part of it worth keeping was worth keeping. She walked into that first meeting with her own name, her own title, and absolutely nothing left to prove.